start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
We can do that.
How about let's all stand
Land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where thy fathers lie, land of thy pilgrims cry. From every mountainside, let freedom ring.
Maestro.
I was hoping you didn't know the second verse, Bill. The ceremonies or celebrations are real important in our lives. It kind of gives us a chance to get together without a whole lot on our agenda and just celebrate humanity, I guess. So I wanted to take the opportunity here. I don't know Bill very well, but you know, you can find out things about people on the internet just like they're an expert. So I think I've gotten to know him a lot better today as I was putting remarks together. But the real problem with that is Bill's been around 3 times as long as the internet has. So we all need to practice something. I put a new word in my vocabulary. It is nanogenarian. That's somebody that turns 90 years old. You're a nanogenarian, Bill, and congratulations. So the first thing we need to say, of course, is the most important part, that Bill's been married to Catherine for 61 years, I think.
Be 62 years in August.
62 years. We have a son, Gerald, a daughter-in-law, Jolie, 2 grandchildren, and the number of grand dogs is reported variously as either 1 or 2. So, 1. Okay.
Down to 1.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that
The dog didn't last for 90 years.
the problem with dogs is that we outlive them. So Bill was born in 1936. Most of us probably know Bill for his military service, so we'll start with that. And looking across the picture, Bill, I think, much after his retirement, this is when you were inducted into the Hall of Fame, the Indiana Military Hall of Fame. And I'll just pass this around. Bill, if you'd like to start. So that kind of sets the stage on Bill's military service. If you look at the ribbons, this is something Bill is so modest about things. He's a parachutist. He's an expert infantryman. I think we got a new chief of security for the club he is. And it turns out that apparently Bill was around in the Revolutionary War.
I was advising to George Washington.
So, on a serious note, during his 30-year career as an officer in the Army National Guard, the Army Reserve, and on active duty, Bill served as a rifle company commander and a cavalry squadron commander, and as a staff officer in 2 different 4-star headquarters units. He was an action officer at the Pentagon and in the Office of Secretary of Defense, and I'm sure that leaves out more than it covers with your career. He graduated from the Army War College and is a member of the Fort Benning Officer Candidate School Hall of Fame. There must be a story there. And that first picture that I passed was from when Bill was inducted into the Indiana Military Veterans Hall of Fame on November 5, 2021. So, it's not all about the military. Bill is president of the French Fork West Baden Lions Club and is the past district governor of the Lions Club. I found it very interesting, and this kind of ties in with the necktie. Bill, I think, if I read this right, you're the founder of Liberty Day, the Liberty Day
25 years ago this year.
25 years ago this year, he initiated an effort to distribute Declaration of Independence and Constitution documents to 8th graders and 11th graders, I believe. And in fact, he's extended that since then into bringing us all to speech a couple times in the meetings. An incredible, I mean, think about the scope of that, and that's through the Lions Club. The scope of that, how many 8th grade and 11th grade students are there in Indiana every year getting that stuff. Bill is the president of the Orange County Gideons. What?
Ray, where are you, Ray? Yeah, back there's the president.
Okay, so past president. Nice to meet you, Rick. If you go to Bill's QRZ.com page, there is a long paragraph of other organizations that he has been associated with or is currently associated with. And I came away with the impression that if Bill put an hour or two into each of those every week, he's already working overtime before he ever gets to us. Very, very long list of charitable organizations. So I won't drone on, this isn't a club meeting, but I did want to touch on the radio experience. Bill has been the owner and general manager of radio station WFLQ 100, which began operation in April 1983. Who wouldn't like to have a 600-watt transmitter, or I'm sorry, a 6,000-watt transmitter and a 300-foot tower? And Bill, you think that could be tuned up on 2 meters?
They need a little more length.
We'd have to put a stretcher up. So down to the point, Bill has been a ham for 74 years. And this is all plus or minus stuff because I'm not sure which side of today that all happened on. He was originally licensed in 1952 and got an extra class real early on in the early 60s. His call signs have included W2LEO, W3WSE, W4VYS, and of course N4BW. So a lot of moving around, I guess probably as a result of the military career, changing call signs back when you had to change whenever you went to a new call area. So that's a lot to remember just right there. So Bill, I'd just like to thank you for your service to the nation and the community, and certainly to the radio club. Another thing on the QRZ page is a list of all radio clubs that Bill's been in, and that's pretty impressive too. There's a half a dozen there, please. This has lived his radio career. So thank you very much, sir. And you know, the one thing that hams are notorious for, anything come to mind? Being cheap. Thank you. Being cheap. So instead of a birthday card, Bill, we put together a collection of QSL cards for you.
Well, how about that? Well, now what? It's supposed to come up. It did before.
Can you include the TV?
Let's see.
Source.
Was this? Was being awarded. They asked him to come to the podium, and he said, "When I came here tonight, I brought 2 speeches, a short one and a long one. I think I'll give the short speech. Thank you." Then he said, "You know, on second thought, I believe maybe I have time to give the long one. Thank you very much." Well, I tell you, I must admit that way back in 1972, I never did think a little bit about what it's like to be 90. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing about being 90 is that we thank the Lord for being top side of the sod. Because we've got a lot of contemporaries from high school and college that just ain't around anymore. And what is a special blessing when you have your spouse with you for 62 years. By the way, does anybody know what the percentage of newlyweds is who will celebrate. By the way, can I take this thing off? It's in my hand. There's no earphones in there. But I'm squeezing my glasses also. So, anybody know what the expectancy is in percentage of newlywed couple celebrating a golden anniversary? Nobody? 6%. 6, that's it. 94% of newlyweds will not make it to a golden anniversary. So we've made it not only to a golden, but past the 60. And here's what's more amazing. The Lord has just blessed our socks off so many times about so many different things. When we were married, Catherine had 2 friends. See, I think you had 4 maybe. That night at Whispering Hills in Louisville, the night that we met. And she had a couple other friends that, Catherine, by the way, there's 3 things I wanted in life. I had 3 goals, 3 major goals in life. First, I wanted to marry a nurse or a teacher. So I got a nurse. And I got her just in time. And, back in 1964, August of 1964. Anyway, we met about a year before then. And at that Whispering Hills mixture dance, she had a couple other friends. Both of whom got married, and we wound up getting married in succession with one another. And so every year we get together, and we've been doing that for our 50th anniversary. We took a cruise down to the Caribbean. We called, and because it was the 50th anniversary for Bill and Catherine, it was also the 50th anniversary for John and Shirley from Frankfurt, and for Billy and Ann Renshaw, who are from Lexington. But we were all married in succession. And so on our 50th anniversary, we took this cruise, and we called it our 150th anniversary. And the Bedford paper did a story on it. They said they didn't have very many 150th wedding anniversaries. So we've been getting together every year, but first of all, just having a 50th anniversary, you're in the 6%. What's the chance of 3 couples that have known each other for over 50 years celebrating a 50th anniversary? So, but that was almost 12 years ago now. So anyway, the Lord blessed me by leading me to a lovely lady nurse who threw in her future with this guy that she didn't know anything about at the time, except they had a dream of first in the Army. My 3 dreams were to find a good wife, and secondly to wear eagles someday. I thought that'd be great, and the Lord let me do that. And then the 3rd thing was to own a radio station. And so I didn't have the resources to buy a radio station. Back when I wanted one in high school, these ideas materialized. And so I had to build them. I had to find a place where I could put a radio station and start from scratch. And so when I was at the Pentagon, we found a new frequency available at 100.1 megahertz, and there was nothing on it in French Lick, Indiana. But we also found another one in Kentucky that we went to see to decide where we should cast our lot. And so after going to the other spot, this was in 1958, 1978. So when we went to French Lick, Catherine is from Scottsburg, so that was something that would cause us to be of particular interest in Indiana. But in 1978, the Toga Lake was not finished. It was being filled, and that looked like it was going to be a big attraction. 1978, the villas were under construction in French Lick. In 1978, Paoli Peaks was under construction, and Herb Stevens, the husband of our visitor tonight, was one of the investors in that to start it. So anyway, there were things going on here in Orange County that made it attractive, looked like there'd be a significant future. But I'll tell you one thing, there wasn't anybody in the world that had any idea that somebody would come along and invest $500 million in this one community to restore the hotel. That was amazing. We had no idea that something like that was going to happen. But anyway, so we cast our lot with French Liquid File, and it took 4 years. It took from 1978 to 1982 to get the grant. And so when we got the grant, I'll never forget that day when I was at Fort Monroe, Virginia, and it was a beautiful spring day, a beautiful fall day. It was September, and our mailbox was right down near the water, Hampton Roads, and so I went down to the post office at lunch break, opened up a box, and here was a notice from the FCC. You are hereby authorized to build a new radio station on 100.1 megahertz in French Lick, Indiana. Now, what it did not say was, during the worst recession since the Great Depression, in a business that's totally dependent on retail sales, from scratch. So we had an interesting challenge, but I remember talking to my boss. I was very fortunate, by the way, in so many ways. When I was promoted, my boss was Carl Bono, General Carl Bono. Carl Bono, pinned my Eagles on. He went on to become Chief of Staff of the United States Army, the top job in the whole U.S. Army. And I knew him. And my previous association, when I was at the Pentagon, I was an escort officer for Jack Marsh. This was before he became Secretary of the Army, but I spent several days with him in his home and so on. And so we got to know each other, particularly during a speech trip when the power went out in our hotel with a real long corridor, and we were in the middle of that corridor, and it was pitch black. And one of the things that helped cement our association was the fact I had a little pen, I had a little pen-like cell, so that we could see. This is back in the days of keys, brass keys, so we could see to get in the room. So you don't have circumstances like that very often with somebody that winds up being at the top of the military chain in the Army. So I personally knew the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army, both who were serving at the same time. That was kind of an unusual circumstance. Anyway, so the Lord let me fulfill these significant motivating factors in my life, and I just appreciate that so much. And I wanted to just show you something here, because anybody here interested in astronomy? Good. How close is the closest star?
Several light years away.
The closest star, Alpha Centauri, is just over 3.4 light years. Is that right? 3.4 light years. That's the closest star other than the sun. And like the teacher was saying to her science class one day, students, do you know that the light that's coming through that window left the sun 8 minutes ago, traveling 186,000 miles a second? Isn't that marvelous? And one student said, I don't think it's so marvelous. After all, it's all downhill. Well, the closest star is actually our sun, 92 million miles away. This man was called for witness in a case involving a traffic accident, and so the defense attorney for the person who was being sued for running into somebody else at an intersection asked this defendant, said, "Sir, may I ask you how old you are?" He said, "I'm 94 years old." 94! He says, "Your Honor, now I submit that somebody 94, by the way," he says, "how far away were you from the accident?" He says, "Oh, near half a block." He says, Your Honor, I submit that somebody this age could not possibly see with the detail explained this accident involving my client. And he says, now you just hold on there, mister. He says, for 94 years, I've been getting up every morning. I get up and look out my window. I see the sun. They tell me that's 92 million miles. So what's a heck of a lot? So this picture. There we go. Okay. The nearest star is Alpha Centauri. But how far is the nearest galaxy? Well, let me tell you something. In 1990, when I was elected district governor, I was following Herb Stevens. Herb Stevens had been governor, and so he gave me a book called The Signature of God when I became governor. That book, published in 1990, said that there are an estimated 50 billion galaxies in the universe, each of which has between 100 and 200 million stars. Now that was 1990. In 1991, Hubble telescope went up, and this gave us a whole new dimension in astronomy. And after some pictures were taken, like this, the one that was on there, we had a new determination. And so in about 1993, they said it's not 50 billion galaxies, it's 100 billion galaxies, 100 billion. And each of which has not 100 to 200 million stars, but has 100 to 200 billion stars. Well, so now we're having a dramatic escalation in the number of stars in the universe. All right, so now we've had the James Webb telescope go up, which gives us even deeper search into space, like this, what was on there. And so that gives us a new dimension in astronomy. And now it has been determined, now this is just since 1990, we're 2025, 2026. They say now that there are not 100 billion galaxies, not stars, galaxies. There are an estimated 1 trillion galaxies. So what they did was they focused on a little spot in the heavens where there was nothing there, just blackness. And they did a long time exposure from both sides of our orbit. And lo and behold, they found there were almost 1,000 galaxies and a spot that had nothing in it. So we thought. So in other words, now the number of stars exceeds the number of grains of sand on Earth. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? Anybody have any idea how many grains of sand are in a 3-minute egg timer? A 3-minute egg timer. 250,000. Yeah, in a 3-minute egg timer. How many on the beach of Etobicoke, let alone the beach anywhere else in the world? So the number of stars is beyond comprehension. And who put them there?
God Almighty.
Yeah. So Abe Lincoln once said, I can understand how somebody looking down at the ground could be an atheist. But I cannot understand how anybody looking up at the stars and seeing the wonder of it could possibly be an atheist. Incidentally, do you know that it's impossible to be an atheist? You ever heard that? People say they're atheists, but they can't be an atheist. An agnostic says, I don't know. You know, there may be a God, I don't know. All right, but an atheist says there is no God. He makes a statement, there is no God. Well, you can't make the statement there is no anything unless you know everything, right? Now, if a PhD who spends his life on one little speck of knowledge to learn all about that, how in the world can anybody know everything? You can't. They say that smartest person on earth with an IQ of 200 would have 0.000000001 knowledge, percent of knowledge. So obviously nobody can know everything to be able to say that something doesn't exist. And just during our lifetimes, we've seen dramatic increases in things that we didn't know existed. So we're fortunate to live in a time where we have all these dramatic changes that are occurring. And I think about the days when I became a ham in 1972, and everything was tubes, and I had a tube-catted, fixed television sets when I was in high school. And back then, about 90% of the problems were tube burnouts. And today, of course, we have solid state that lasts forever and ever. So we've seen some dramatic changes. Just in the time we've had Q100 in the last 42 years, we've been through 3 major transitions in equipment. And the speed of change is occurring at a faster rate. Anybody, well, I'm sure some of you are familiar with the development of transistors, but anybody know how many, this is an I-16. Anybody have any idea how many transistors are in this? Well, now, I have a code oscillator from 1972. It has 1 transistor. 1 transistor is about as big as the end of my pinky. Well, Moore's law was developed by the co-founder of Intel, and he observed that once transistors were being developed at a massive scale, and we went then to integrated circuits, that the number of transistors in an integrated circuit would double every 2 years. And so we are now at the point where a little thing like this has 14 billion transistors. 14 billion. And the number increases by billions every 2 years, which is why your phone will do so much now that a phone a few years ago couldn't do. And you begin to wonder, well, where is the end? You know, where's the finite end? It can't go any further. Well, we're down now to the you're talking about nanocircuits and nanocircuitry. We're now at the point where we are working with atoms. Atom, something the size of an atom, to be able to develop the circuits that are in a phone like this. And the Chinese have already jumped that fence, and so we're having to catch up. We've been through some remarkable times. I just want to mention something. My life has been a composite of several things, and of course this is why we're here tonight. And I want to thank all of you for being here and for being fellow radio hams, and for being interested in getting together to share some of your knowledge and to share the fellowship that we have. So anyway, I'm very thankful for the Orange County Amateur Radio Club, and for Matt, who has led the way with the 6 of us on that first meeting.
8.
8 people, okay, so the 8. Would the 8 of you who were there stand up to be recognized? Come on. Would you all please stand up? The 8 of you that were there for the organizational meeting of the Orange County Amateur Radio Club. Yeah. Okay, so we got 3 of the 8, 4 of the 8 here tonight. Okay, well, thanks very much. You all set the pace for, we now have, is it 33? 34. We beat Larry Bird's number. So 34 now from that first meeting of 8, and that was 2 years ago next month. So anyway, thanks for leading the way and for all of what you do, and for each of you who've been involved and doing so much. This club is a good club. I've been a member of 4 clubs over the years. One of the memories I mentioned this at one time in the past, but I'd sure like to hear this again. So, when I was a member of the Knickerbocker Amateur Radio Club in New York, we went to Connecticut for Field Day, ARRL Field Day, in June, and we stopped in Newington, Connecticut. Newington, Connecticut is where the American Radio Relay League headquarters is located. And that is the location of W1AW. That's what this little pin is here. Anybody that's operated W1AW gets a pin. So when we were there, we were visiting, and I asked if I could operate on 80 meters on the more CW. And said, yeah. Well, now W1AW does things big. So we had a kilowatt on 80 meters. Now, whenever W1AW goes on the air, there's a pile of a whole bunch of people from all around the world who want to work at that station and get the QSL card. So they said, yeah, I could get on there. So I got on and I batted up on 3805, 80 meters. I batted out at CQ, dotted it, da-da-da, 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 at W1AW, K. That means come, go ahead. Boom, all these signals came on. One of which was W2OMG, a longtime friend. And so I come back, now this is before we had computers and had any idea, how to find out anything about anybody back then. And so I said W2OMG, dotted it, W1AW. Hi, Bill, how are you doing? And he about fell out of his chair because nobody would have any idea, as a #1 station in the world, who all the people are, especially in pilot. But anyway, it was a memorable event for that trip. And so we had a lot of interesting memories as hams of various times that we were operating, sometimes under emergency circumstances, and sometimes not. But we are ready to be able to help when everything else fails. And so Matt has got us on board for, first of all, our 2-meter repeater that we had under the old club years ago, but he's also got us now on a 444 megahertz repeater, which is all digital and analog. And he personally has put together a 900 megahertz repeater, which is totally independent, battery operated and solar charged. So doesn't need any power, and so only Matt would come up with stuff like that. So we're thankful to him for Matt's leadership and for each of those of you who accept the responsibilities and who are helping the club just by being a member. So we've been very fortunate to get grants to do some of the things that we've discussed in the past. That are now reality. And all of that is because somebody is willing to work and make it happen. So a dream is only a dream until there's a deadline put on it. Somebody gets to work and make it reality. So this is part of my life ever since I was in junior high school. And other things have been a part of my life as well. And Annette has been involved in the Lions Club for a long time. Are you still treasurer?
Yes.
Okay, still treasurer of the Paoli Lions Club. But the significance of the Lions Club, the motto, we serve. And a lot of people have the idea, you serve me. But the Lions Club is, we serve you. And so we do all kinds of projects to help others. And we provide eyeglasses for those that are in need, that can't afford them, and many other things. But this is the largest international association in the world. We're shooting for 1.5 million members in over 200 countries around the world. So Herb was past district governor, formed 7 new clubs during his year as governor. 7, that's remarkable. And so we're thankful for folks that are devoted like Herb and Annette to the Lions. So this is another thing that I'm very much devoted to. And then this is the symbol of the Gideons. You know, I've heard about the Gideons. The Gideons International. We put the Bibles in hotels around the world. So wherever you go, you should be able to find a Bible placed there by the Gideons, and in many cases made possible by folks that are here in Orange County who are willing to part with some of their money to buy Bibles that are sent elsewhere around the world. So the Gideons are a big part, and we had our Gideon meeting. Ray is the president of our camp here in Orange County. We had a meeting right here in this room Monday night, and we had some real good news about how people are supporting the Gideons by helping us buy Bibles. Of course, a lot of you are familiar with Q100, and our Q100 idea started, I guess, maybe when I was in high school, but it didn't get materialized for a long time. But that it was a dream when I was at the Pentagon that became closer to reality when I started to develop the resources to be able to buy everything that was necessary to put on the air. You have, when you're filed with the FCC, you have to show proof of ability, financial ability, to put a radio station on the air. Now, I might tell you something. When we went on the air in 1982, I was supposed to be able to get a $50,000 loan from the bank. That I had a letter when I filed in 1978 that said that if I were to be given a license, they would loan me $50,000 to build a station. Well, come 1982, and I got the grant, but because it was the worst recession since the Great Depression, and the economy was down in the tank, the bank changed their policy, and they would not lend us a penny, nothing. So we had to build the station and operate with what cash I had saved over the years. That was enough to get us operational for 90 days. That's it. 90 days, if we didn't have money to keep us going, I was done. So we didn't have much money, needless to say. So the first Sunday that we were here, we were at West Basin First Baptist Church. And when we came out to get in the car, we had our son with us, and he was about, how old was Gerald? 14. Okay, so parked next to us was a car that had 2 adults and 2 children, and they weren't there when we went into church. And so I asked, can we help you? And he said, we don't have any place to go. We haven't had anything to eat for more than a day. We thought maybe someone in the church might help us. Well, I had $5 in my wallet. I think Catherine had about the same. But this is the power that the Lord has to deliver. I said, let's see what we can do. You just follow me. We went to a place called Jeannie's Chicken. It was in Prospect back then. And now I didn't know any more what was going to happen than any of you do right now. But so we got over to Jeannie's Chicken, and we walked in, and I hear Q100 in the kitchen. And so I walked back, and we'd only been on the air for a week. And I walked back in the kitchen, and Gene was cooking. And I said, I hear you listening to that new radio station. He said, oh yeah, I like country music. I said, what's the chance you'd like to run an ad on that station? He said, well, what would it cost? I said, it'd cost 8 lunches. And he said, I could do that. And I still have my $5. So the Lord can deliver, you know, if we just have faith to do whatever He leads us to do. You know, Holy Spirit will lead you to do some things. I remember another time when I was speaking at a church in western Indiana, right near the Wabash River, and I was sitting there when the pastor said, we're going to have our collection now, and these 2 ushers went up. And so I looked in my wallet, I had a $20 bill, and in my pocket I had 11 cents. And I had to give a talk at a history, at a historical society in Ireland that afternoon. So I wasn't going to get home, till late. And I thought, gee, I can't give him the $20 bill. I need that for lunch. But I don't want to give him 11 cents. And so the Holy Spirit said, well, give him the $20 bill. And here now the ushers are coming down my way, and I'm telling $20, 11 cents. $20, 11 cents. So finally they get right down to me, and I reluctantly threw that $20 bill on that plate. And it just doesn't make any sense. Oh, I know what I'll do. I'll be collecting cash at the end of the service for Bibles. I just use some of that cash and I'll write a check for it when I get home. Fine. I'm standing there at the door. People put money in my Bible. And then at the end of the line, this lady comes up and she says, I'm the church treasurer. She says, I'll just take that money and give you a church check. And I thought, you know what? Maybe this will be one of those rare times when the pastor invites me to have lunch. Maybe once every 5 years. And, so we're talking, and finally he says, well, thanks for coming. And he goes and gets in his car. And I thought, wonder if there might be somebody that would take a credit card. Well, Petersburg was the closest city. So I went to Petersburg, and I drive up to the Dairy Queen, which has a Visa emblem on the window. And so I hold out my card, and she says, what, is this a credit or debit card? I said, it's a credit card. She says, well, I'm sorry, we don't take credit cards. We only take debit cards. Really? Where can I use a credit card in this town? She said, you might try McDonald's. I go to McDonald's, and there's a Visa sign on there, and I hand it to it, and the same question. What kind of card is this? I'm sorry, we only take debit cards. Well, Lord, maybe this is the time I'm supposed to fast. So I drive to Ireland. I didn't know where I was going to be speaking. I just knew it was a historical society. And I was going to have to ask directions where it was. So I get to that stoplight in Ireland, blinking light, and I look off, and it's a warm day, real nice warm day. I look off, and I see this Catholic church off to the left, and some guys that are talking in the parking lot. And I want to go ask them where it is. So I'm headed down there. I go down a little dip. I had the window open. It was a nice warm day, and here is the local organization, Knights of Columbus, that is having a barbecue, a chicken barbecue. And that smoke was walking down the window. Oh, it smells so good. I wonder if they'll take a credit card. And I whip in there, and there are two guys sitting at a little table with a cash box. And I walked up and I said, would you take a credit card for your barbecue chicken? And this one guy looks at me and he says, aren't you the Lions district governor? Not past district governor. He says, weren't you here a couple of years ago to talk about cancer control? I said, yeah, that's right, I was. He says, are you the one that's going to be talking to this historical society today? I said, well, yeah, as a matter of fact, I was going to ask you where it is. He says, I tell you what, because of your community service, we'll just give you a dinner. And I still have my 11 cents. And so I'm enjoying that chicken dinner. Boy, it was good. I don't remember, it was good. And while I'm eating it, the other guy walks over and he says, you know, when you were here a couple of years ago, we decided we want to make a contribution to cancer control. He says, but we didn't know where to send the check. So here's a check for $250. And can you imagine now, if I had kept the 20 bucks, I would have missed out on all of that. So sometimes when the Lord prompts you to do something, it doesn't seem to make sense, but you just don't know what He has in store for you. This past Thursday, a week ago, I was about to call a certain pastor that doesn't allow us to give reports, and just to ask him again in case he changed his mind. Because whenever I called, they would send a contribution, a few $100. So I had it on my list to call him. Before I could call him, I went out to get the mail. There was a letter from his church. And I opened up the letter, and guess how much was in there? Well, one person knows, two people know in here. $1,000 for Bibles. The same day, I was going to call him. I mean, the Lord works in interesting ways, doesn't he? And I mean, you can't outgive the Lord. So, anyway, we've had so many interesting circumstances. Well, a little symbol for this one you all know because you see that on a dollar bill. But the Great Seal is worn on the cap of all military officers, and or at least except for the Navy. But anyway, there's a significant story to this, but this is representative of my military career anyway, for which I'm very thankful. And by the way, I credit my agility to the military, to jump school. When I went to airborne training, I decided that this is something I ought to do the rest of my life, just the calisthenics. And so I know positively, absolutely, undeniably, very reliably, that there are a number of occasions when I would have had broken bones if I hadn't been doing what I do every day in calisthenics. So I'm thankful for so many things in there. This was mentioned, Liberty Day. This is the Constitution presenting programs and copies of the Constitution to 8th and 11th graders. We started with 8th and 11th grades because those are the classes in Indiana that take American history. And so we're interested in making our students aware of that. I'd like to point out one of the factors that motivated this effort. Back in 2000, the start of the program in 2001, 25 years ago this year. And back then it was just a local area, the schools right here in the Q100 area. Now it's a statewide program. But there was a survey that was done in the late 1990s and found there were more Hoosier students that knew the names of the Three Stooges than knew the three branches of government. And we thought, everybody should know the three branches of government, some basic things like that. And so that's one of the reasons why I started the program. One thing that many people do not know are how many liberties are protected by the First Amendment. And so this is true whether it's a college class, high school class, any other kind of class, even VFW. I've spoken to various veterans groups, American Legion. Nobody seems to know some basic things. They all talk about their First Amendment rights, but they don't know what they are. So I thought we need to do this. We have a program coming up next week. As a matter of fact, that Liberty Day program will talk about that very thing. So this book is what we print, and we just print 10,000 at a time, and we get patriotic businesses to support it, so we can give those away. So this is another of my interests, and something that I revere as I do Gideon's and the Orange County Amateur Radio Club and Lines. We're fortunate to have a country in which all of these organizations are not constrained by the government. We can do whatever we like so long as it doesn't hurt somebody else in the process. And for that, we have a lot to be thankful. So the picture that we started with of the heavens is fascinating because it shows the dramatic power of God in a way that perhaps you don't fully appreciate any other way. But the fact that we've lived long enough to see the results of first the Hubble and now the James Webb Telescope is a dramatic opportunity for us to look back over the centuries to what our forebears did not know, could not see. And because of Moore's Law and the fact that maybe the number of transistors in an integrated circuit will double again while we're all still here, while you all are still here, is something that is just so marvelous that you cannot hardly even imagine what capabilities you're going to have in the next 2 years because of Moore's Law and because of many other things as well. So we're fortunate to live, and I'm so thankful that I'm able to be here with you tonight. And thanks for the summary of 90 years worth. And as I mentioned earlier to Rick, I never thought I'd get this old this quick. So I thank the Lord for creating me and for creating you. And I'm thankful to be alive at the same time as you. So thank you so much. And let's have some cake.